Indeed.
Into game we go. Weibo versus EDG. Last time we saw these two teams face off, Weibo knocked out EDG from the World Qualifier. They beat them 3-1. Now both these teams, despite the fact that Weibo were world finalists and EDG were at points the best team in the LPL last year, they're a far cry from it. Both of them are struggling. EDG, if they lose today, they're out of playoffs, never mind world contention. That's a long time ago.
It does feel like EDG have got a lot of soul searching to do to figure out how they're going to play the game. Weibo, of course, not the greatest split for them either. And what heights they've fallen from their surprise World Finals run. They'll first pick the Karma, they banned the Smolder and the Senna, wanting to play out from different things alongside the Varus as well. Those are the three massive AD carry picks. The Kalista and the Lucian on the other side for those lane dominant options. Ashe remains, but that's often been the support pick. So what on earth are you looking bot? The lock-in of the Rakan says, if you don't pick Xayah here, we'll just third pick that ourselves.
Yeah, the thing is, the Xayah can very much fall down in lane against some stuff too. I mean, the Rakan is pretty fine to be put elsewhere. One of the reasons why the Ashe has not been seen as much is because...
Oh! That, we were just joking a little bit about would we see a last pick Nilah over in the LCK. We just see it picked right out here very early on in the blue side draft. That is a lot of AD carry bans, and immediately the spice comes on through. Clearly a plan for this bot lane from both sides.
You were talking about, you know, what about the Ashe? We haven't seen that as much, XYZ. One of the reasons why we haven't seen the Ashe as much right now is because a lot of teams have struggled with range supports. Crisp is one of the champ players, weirdly, who has a great win rate on range supports, awful on melee. He had something like a record of all of his wins were on range supports, and every single melee game he had played was a loss as well. He was a fantastic Renata player, a fantastic Ashe player. So him picking this up, it's good in terms of Weibo knowing themselves, and alongside the Nilah as well, it allows them to play towards this duo which they pulled out against OMG in game 1. This is a duo they have played before, and they took 10 plates as a duo lane in about 8 minutes.
Wow.
They completely shut out that game, and I believe that was against the Xayah Rakan as well. It was absolutely disgusting. And EDG's bot lane now, the Snake and Vampire, two rookies into the LPL proper against Light and Crisp, two of the biggest names in their individual roles in the LPL. This is not easy street.
No, it is not, and especially considering the early Rakan lock-in that was saying if you don't lock the Xayah, we'll do it ourselves. They've said, okay, we'll lock the Xayah, see how that goes for you. And of course now the attention goes towards the top lane. Cassante banned away. I wonder whether something like the Udyr might come out here as another ban.
I actually think the Ezreal's a good ban because that's one of the few AD carries that can survive the laning phase here. You could also ban anything which could... I mean, I think that EDG, they've done the right job in terms of banning away some of the early pressure picks, which can cause you problems. I think the Volibear as well is also an early diving champion, which you can add onto their woes even more. So Weibo, they're not focusing on the AD carries. They're saying, look, whatever you lock in, we're going to crush it either way. The Jack's taken away from Arla, because also it is Arla's Jax.
Exactly, I should remember that.
And now we have to see what Arla can... I think you kind of have to lock in... I think you lock in Ezreal here. I think that's probably the easiest thing you got. I don't want to see Xayah. Xayah just gets crushed in this lane.
Do you have to think about something like an Udyr here and then try and save something weird for the top side? Ziggs would be interesting to try and match to kind of exceed the range of the Nilah and the Ashe. You are, you know, Ashe long range-ish, of course, with the W in particular. But Nilah, melee champion, maybe you can try and just outrange and outpoke.
That happens when you get levels. What happens to level 1? Level 1, if they don't get really good value, this bot lane is going to get crushed. Now, this is an interesting combo, and you have now really good wombo combo with the Rakan, potentially with the Orianna, and the Ziggs on top of it. I don't like this combo, though. You've now gone double AP carries for the side of EDG, which are easy to itemize against, and I think you die early anyway. EDG, I think that if they make it out of the first 3-4 levels of the game, sure, this can have some value. I think this is really quite dangerous now, with the Rel and the Aatrox being backline access and helping the Nilah get into the fray as well. It's going to be very dangerous. Arla's going back to the Jace. He's played this once already. He had a terrible early game on it, but he managed to get away with a win there. This is a weird draft from EDG, because the Ziggs Rakan, in isolation, I don't mind it as a duo. I think they're going to get crushed in early game, which means that EDG aren't going to be able to support this Jace on top side. I think Weibo, they have winning top, potentially with the Rel having angles onto the Jace, while EDG are trying to save their bot lane as well.
So the only thing I'll say here is if one of the things that Ziggs is supposed to allow you to do, much like an Ezreal, is to be able to basically just be very hard to deny access to farm, because you can just farm the way with Q in your minefield from miles and miles and miles away. And at that point, maybe you can just try and say, okay, the Snake, you're just being left alone. Good luck. Ult the wave when you have to, and we'll try and play for the team buds, and we'll try and play around the Jace instead. I just don't know how easy it's going to be when you look at the ability to pull off dives, and is it going to be worth doing? It'll be risky.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I like the innovation. I like the fact that they're thinking outside the box. That's not something which I'm going to discredit for them, especially when EDG are in a very difficult scenario. They've thrown something at the wall. Let's see if it sticks. If they lose this series today, they're out of playoffs. They will be into... I think it's the only second time ever EDG have missed a playoffs in their entire history of 10 years within the LPL. Started in 2014 spring, 10 years later. They are a far former shadow of their former selves.
Exactly. On the other side now for Weibo Gaming, they want to make this series a clean and decisive one. This should be, much like the last series, a pretty heavily biased game in terms of Weibo. They are the ones coming in as the favourites. They are the ones with the better scoreline and on average the better play. We haven't been that convinced like by Weibo in their gameplay. Particularly players like Xiao, who have been receiving a lot of criticism. There's been a lot of doubts about the consistency. Yodang's joined the roster to try and bring a little bit of a shake-up to make things work. Starting off here, first game I believe on stage, has had no champions history on there, going to be on the rel.
Fish has blown flash already.
Oh,
that's not a good start. Now we're looking at potentially a flash this mid laner, which is a very squishy lane to potentially be even broken into by Yodang. I think Crisp on the Ashe. When you are playing towards the more ranged supports like the Ashe, this is a continual conversation we've had, so just to update again, most of the LPL teams are playing towards melee support. Now the thing is, Crisp is a very good ranged support player and allows you to play quite differently. And this is the picture-in-picture to see how that flash is blown. Hail of Blades slows on the Ashe. You do not want to get taken down too easily.
I think the fast flash there required, and you understand why it was done, but it's still a frustrating thing to blow early, of course, because minions haven't spawned yet. At least you're spending a fair amount of that cooldown without having to be in lane and at risk. We've got a pause.
That's fun.
Is it?
Right. I'm sure it is for someone out there. We'll see what that's for. We had a pause the other day as well. We're just hoping that's going to be fairly quick. And now this is the camera pan of shame.
Who is it?
I think it's EDZ up there on the top. Actually,
I think it's CDC.
Anyway, Weibo, they have a pause. What pause content have you cooked up for us?
So, was it?
It's right in my ear when you said,
well, you leaned towards me.
Leaning towards the microphone.
But let me think. So, I went to see 1975 last night.
How was that?
I've
not heard of them before.
A really good gig. I don't know the 1975 that well. I went to see them about 10 years ago. Had a really good time with them then, but they've obviously changed a lot since then. They had a really cool stage, where effectively what they've done is that the stage setup was like a 1970s house. So you would you had this open plan, like it was like you were going to like a theater show or whatever. And they had it was every member of the band walked up, they turned on a different lamp. They had like 8 different people on stage. They had like 5 pianos, they had guitars. Those of like sitting room seats. They all come around and sit on various seats that they were playing around the coffee table and watching TV
okay,
and stuff.
That's kind of cool.
So it was a really well staged show. And like when they came on stage, they had like a Friends opening theme where they had like people with movie cameras walking around. And so on the side they had like starring like a Friends opening theme effectively with all like starring the various band members and stuff. They had like an opening credits sequence and stuff, which was really cool.
To zoom in on the logo. We're into game again.
There you go. Away from my personal life and back onto a much more riveting topic, namely League of Legends. And game 1 here between Weibo Gaming and EDG, 2 of the most popular organisations in the LPL, but both in slightly awkward situations in terms of the levels of play. EDG more so, especially considering they have had a whole revamp of the roster. A lot of people coming up from Academy and not succeeding in the way they were hoping for.
And we did hear just a little while ago that Jeja is on the mend.
Good.
He's not, so, thing is, once you've been out of practice for a little while, it kind of sucks. You're just taking a hard trade early as EDZ, very much going to be on the weak side for now. Question is, though, what are you going to do in this bot side? Because when you also have Neela giving you the XP advantage, very easy to get over XP advantages and get towards HP advantages to EDG. They cannot afford to get completely burst out early on. Yodang, level 3. There's a teleport on the snakes. You don't even have something like a barrier or a heal. I feel like this is a real danger station for EDG.
Monkey is kind of reverse clearing here, kind of aware that he might have been invaded onto. Might still be, actually. Needs to be a little afraid. There's a Shattering Strike and a Smite. There we go. Just takes the entire camp, and Yodang very pleased with that indeed.
Now, what that means is that Monkey has... if he stays around bot side to try and protect his bot lane, they're going to be in a very difficult position. You can see that Light and Chris, they're hiding in this Tri-Brush just to see if anything comes of it. If Vampire and the Snake walked up to that wave too far, they would have got wrapped around on the back side of it. But as it stands, Vampire and the Snake doing quite well in regards to the early few levels. That was one of the big pain points that we highlighted for them before.
Yeah, and the thing is, for all that you have got the melee champion in the Neela, the Ashe kind of mitigates that lack of range. And the Neela, even with the Formless Blade, does still do a lot of work. The only thing I will say is there's not a huge amount of value you're going to get out of the Jubilant Veil this game, because it only blocks autos, and realistically, probably only Monkey's going to be doing that with a 3 Talon Strike that you feel really good about blocking. Maybe some of the Jace autos. As
ooh, Light takes a tower shot.
Lots of damage on the tower shot! Has to flash away from the bouncing bomb, and the Ignite not quite enough. My days, that's every summoner but a flash on Chris blown.
Okay, so mission accomplished in the bot side in regards to surviving the early lane. The Snake has teleport and isn't even punished for not taking a heal or something like that. You typically take the teleport on the mages in bot lane anyway. It means you can be suspect in these early all-ins. Not the case. Light misplaying the all-in. And Light and Chris with the duo, they absolutely demolished OMG with. It's one of the cleanest games I've seen from them in the entire split. Not in a great spot now. We're going to see the picture-in-picture exactly what happens here. Gets himself the double dash forward. Dashes out of the he dashes out of the grand entrance to try and avoid the knockup. Goes into tower range though. Steps a little too far forward.
Rip an Ignite and a tower shot suddenly means he loses about half of his health bar and has to play out the rest of that one a little bit scarily. And especially if you're given some free time and the fact that yes, you're running with you get a little bit of healing as the Neela, of course, with some of the way you build your kit, but you're still going to deal with the fact that the Snake's going to be able to sort of just continue to throw bombs from a long, long way away. Your only real way to get on top of them as the Neela is just to all in, right? That's just how Neela works.
Yeah, so this is exactly what I'm saying. Once you have a few levels and you have your first back, you're pretty okay. Yodang finds out Monkey again, stole the camp away from earlier. What more can he do? Gets the knock up. He's got Xiaohu and ZDZ on his side.
Monkey, I think, might have to turn home to his own jungle, but there's nowhere to go. The trees are cut down. He is dead to rights.
That's a problem because the kill goes over to ZDZ in this lane where you expect Ala to get lane dominance too. Xiaohu's first on the roam, ZDZ's first on the roam. Yodang gets to go towards the grubs as well. Weibo, while the bot side of the map, I mean, given this draft, importantly is not going well for them, they do claim some benefits in top side.
I was going to be a bit frustrated. I was like, he's had the wave shuffle most of the game, and suddenly the one time.
This is Jace. This is Jace. This is the whole thing. EDG, the last time they played this top lane Jace as well, they made similar mistakes where I felt like Ala had good early trades, and then actually they made a mistake around the top side of the map. Monkey is now going to walk towards this. Yodang might have stayed a little too far, but he does get all 3 of those grubs. And Monkey can't find an all-in. Of course, he doesn't have the flash, and it's a flash from Yodang as well. So, more than fine to walk away with the objective.
Try and look instead for the Raptors, especially as Xiaohu has just backed and will need to TP back in. So, Raptors for Monkey. This time, I don't think there'll be any real way to contest him. It's actually got Vampire, who's just left lane to support a little bit as well. So, trying to get something on the map while Yodang and Xiaohu are resetting.
The Snake, happy now to just kind of play in this lane. You're against 2 squishies. Now, if those bombs land and you're good at your long-range skill shots, you see exactly what happens here. Light cannot look for the all-ins because they are below quarter HP at this point. So that's why I was saying again, the first few levels of the game were very, very risky. Now they've overcome that. You've been rewarded for that early laning phase, and the Snake and Vampire as the rookies in this bot lane matchup. Doing more than fine here.
Yeah, and the Snake is someone who's played a little bit of the Ziggs. He's kind of been one of those pocket picks you've had available, and it does feel like a lot of the LDL bot laners have them just because of the way
Fearless draft.
You have to Fearless draft because one of the big things you've got to concern yourself with is we're actually seeing Yodang get jumped on here. Maybe he needs to flash on out and does so. It's not mounted up, so no real way of getting over the wall by throwing the Iron Horse over it. Now finally Ferromancy mount up and can maybe look to play out a bit more, but just has to leave it as is, flashed out.
So last time that Yodang was on one of the objectives, he had his solo laners come to him first. Now he's going towards bot side though. This Neela, who is down an awful lot of gold early, comparative as well, built up a cull and is behind in CS. Did not have the same degree of safety to walk into bot side river that he did off top side. Ala, he's 10 CS up, gonna be a little bit less of that as he gets cleaned up here by ZDZ. Very interested to see what happens now that the steel caps are built up and he can go towards potentially something like a Hydra.
Yeah, and the only thing it does is it gives Aleph free reign to go throw a ward down on the Gromp, come along over here is actually ZDZ Does land the Infernal Chains, trying to prevent Aleph from getting into the lane easily. We'll have some Honey Fruit to work with in the way. Still shoving towards him, so it should be fine.
One of the things which changed about Aatrox a lot, actually, in terms of his individual balance, was a lot of the time it's about his W cooldown, because it's one of the ways that you really threaten ranged champions. Your Q cooldown's one thing, that affects everything. Particularly against ranged champions. If you get to tag someone with a W, and then get like your first knock up into it, it's kind of guaranteed to get the second part of the W damage and the pullback as well. So just using that and using that cooldown, very important to see how you can catch out Jace, particularly when he's in ranged form. You know, the thing about Jace is that he used to be kind of like a ranged champion with the stats of a melee one. They have hit that over time, so it's harder to be free to play the heavier punish plays.
Yeah, well, Shock Blast that missed there as well, and obviously ZDZ has gone towards the Comet, which you do often see from Aatrox into those ranged matchups, which can otherwise be quite difficult to get value on other keystones from, called Conqueror, Grasp, all things that Aatrox has run in the past. But against things like the Rumble, the Jace, does feel like the Comet makes some sense.
And because you're basically a half-range champion yourself, you tap someone with a Q, you're definitely not playing at melee range. So
it is a very long-range ability.
And, you know, this is now going to be a bit of an issue for EDG, because, you know, this Jace is meant to be ahead of the game. Jace is very much balanced to that.
Oh,
he walks next to the wall.
Phenomenal arrow, Crisp, living up to his namesake. That is ice cold.
This is one of the reasons why we see Crisp still picking range supports like the Ashe. A lot of the LPLs moved away from it. They want their Nautilus, they want the Alistair. Crisp needs the range supports. And though the laning phase didn't work out for him, he leaves the lane and gets some value out of it.
Kind of a bit of perhaps a shock to those who haven't been following the LPL super close. Of course, Crisp back in the day when he was winning world championships with FDX, it was the Thresh that he was making a name for himself on those kind of pick, more melee-ish AD carries, the hook champions. Bit of a transition.
Carry now. Yeah.
Sorry, like
supports.
Supports, that's what I meant, thank you. And it's that change in style, pretty huge, as once again the Snake landing some very clean combos.
And the thing is, when Ziggs gets to push in and chunk you out like that, gets autos on turret, the Ziggs fast use passive does an insane amount of damage to turrets, and potentially getting to the point where he can even satchel the turret down for huge plate gold. He's got himself a Dark Seal as well. Feels like he can stay safe and stack up that one as well. Very valuable item on a lot of mages right now if the backline access isn't there. The problem is, of course, EDG, rest of the map not necessarily going that well for them. Feels like they are going to now have to hinge off a Vampire, getting a good long CC combo. So the Snake's gold is very, very easy to leverage. It's not about skill shots if someone's CC'd in place for 3 seconds.
Yeah, and then perhaps a little bit against the expectations from draft, the actual attentions from Weibo have ended up being more successful towards the top side than they have been towards the bot lane where they had the Neela and the Ashe. One grub was taken, but still 5 towards Weibo. Arrow comes on through, lands onto Monkey, will not have a chance to Crescent Guard quite yet, may have to shortly, does so now, but already the roots come on through to Vampire, who still manages to buffer out with a well-timed battle dance and gets out to safety.
I mean, mainly the 3-person shockwave from Fisher buys that space. He ends up buying the retreat. And Monkey's ult as well sees him to safety. So EDG, a moment of worry there. Problem is, on the bot side, again, the Ziggs can just keep throwing out skills, get more passive autos on this turret. One more wave, that's turret down to Satchel.
Does indeed, and they can look to reset. And again, the Snake being left alone, causing a lot of trouble in this bot side. It's up nearly 40 CS individually in the matchup. Survived, more than survived, has thrived in this lane and has continually made Light's life very difficult. What are you blocking as Light with the W? You just take damage for free.
Well, I mean, that's one thing, right? It's more about messing up the early levels, so you never get that chokehold over the bot side of it. That's why it really does feel like the Snake, they did well, they did their work at the early levels. After that point, so hard to play, to the point where they've now switched away from that bot lane. ZDZ's in bot side, and he can maybe threaten. In fact, there was a Satchel, looks like, on the minimap, away from that Aatrox towards the bot side of the map. Ala, we'll see what happens there. Is there a hammer blow away? Not when they've been stunned in place.
Crash down, Shattering Strike, not that much damage on the run, but Crisp is coming on over. We'll just get to W, and it's actually Crisp that has given the kill. They'll get another, the arrow flying on the other side to try and play out this bot side and buy some time. The tower goes down, but it's still going to be ZDZ in a 4-man dive. Does go down. The Snake picks that one up. The Ziggs continues to oppress on the other side of the map.
Cross map comes through from both these teams. Light, however, on the Neela, very good at killing turrets with the Formless Blade as well. It affects turrets, by the way. It will hit it. So even though been struggling in the 2v2, he managed to escape that. ZDZ and Ala both die for the bot lane's gains. I think this is maybe slightly better for Weibo, because I think the Ziggs was taking that turret anyway. Weibo will be happy to get something onto the Neela. Problem is, the Neela's still not going to be ahead of the game. They're down 40 CS, a huge amount of gold to the side of the Snake. Ziggs is going to make him a very threatening carry. That's the word.
One of them. There's a few in the English language, I hear.
So I've heard, yeah.
Still. Eyes instead go to the rest of the map. We've got a little bit of time before any other objectives are spawning, and the game's still pretty even. The problem Weibo are finding is like, yes, the Ashe has been finding a lot of value, but this Nila has just been absolutely torn apart down the 40 CS. This Ziggs is going to prove very, very difficult, and yes, the Jace is behind, but you're still going to have to deal with the fact that you've got this double poke that is going to be very hard unless you land the really good combo to make things happen from Weibo Gaming to kind of deal with.
As we've had this cross map, one of the things which we really need to start tracking now is what's happening with these Ashes, what's happening with the Vision. The Jara dodged out on because actually Ashe threw that on top of a ward. Something that we need to keep tracking, because as we've just had the flip-flop around the top lane and the bot lane, wards have been put in positions that you don't necessarily expect them from. EDG get away with that one. They get away with it in mid lane too. The Snake potentially was going to get jumped on that. And with him now taking up shop, well, rather setting up shop in the mid lane, maybe it's easier to jump onto the Ziggs than it was in this bot lane matchup.
Archangels now bought by Fisher, both stacking for the double AP mages in this game. Be probably completing that in about 5 odd minutes. Less so for the Snake, who has been stacking that one for a very long time. Early tier came on through, the Lost Chapter as well. It's going to be infinite bombs right now from the Ziggs. Never running out of mana in this game.
That's double Lost Chapter items for the Snake, as you're saying. I would imagine it's going to be the Luden's Companion. That means that, of course, you get the extra bonus from the Seraphs in terms of the mana shield and the mana AP scaling as well from both of them. I mean, we used to see Seraph's Rod of Ages way back in the day. Rod of Ages is kind of a crap item now, though, so people don't go towards it. Weibo, they're going to get chunked out a little bit through this choke point. If EDG can control a choke point with bombs, with the minefield and the ball, very hard for Weibo to find good value from a lot of these fights. Weibo really need to find ways beyond where EDG expect them to come in through these corridors.
Exactly that. They are still going to have to think about trying to contest for this Herald. Over the arrow lands, that's onto the Rakan. Onto the backside, ZD does so much damage onto the Snake, who's surviving for now, but just doesn't have enough in the tank to get away from the Aatrox, who just runs at him. The shockwave on the other side is good, but Monkey will still die, and Weibo win out the fight.
ZDZ 1v2's the bot lane that has been determining the pace of this game from EDG. And EDG just don't end up controlling the corridors they need to. They don't get to seal off all the angles. And despite the fact that this game has not been about the Nila Ashe in the way it was last time Weibo picked it out, Weibo find a way to win that fight. Really want to credit Ryodang as well. Been very bold about the way that he's walked up to the different carries of EDG and found fights all the same. And this is now a very concerning moment. EDG were ahead of the game. Now they're going to have to play from significantly far behind, with the Herald being stolen in that play too.
Stolen away, kills given over. This Aatrox kind of managed to be gifted a number of kills and assists and is now in a very scary position. 3 kills on the Ashwell. Crisp continuing to be really obnoxious. The early Umbral Glaive means they will actually be a serious damage threat at this point in the game. Dragon about to be started by EDG, but I wonder whether Weibo feel like they've still got opportunity to contest. They've still got an ultimate, particularly on Light, to work with. Could prove a bit difficult for EDG.
Really seeing what happens with ZDZ again. He doesn't have the World Ender right now. He is off of Vision, and Al is not really in a point where he can contest him in a 1v1. He's fairly low HP as well. Yodang, no flash for him to force out a play again, but just with the threat that EDG realized, oh, we don't have the vision to control bot Tribrush and the bot side of the river, we can't afford to face up to Weibo right now. We can't walk into this again. Fisher has teleport, could have come down to the play if he wanted to. Instead, gets himself top lane out of turret and gets himself some gold in hand, and that'll get him on his way towards his second item as well. It's been a big thing in the LPL, actually, just putting a mid laner into a side lane. It was much more apparent with the Azir, which is called global banned right now due to a bug. But still, getting something like an Orianna, a little bit of extra gold to get towards the second item is something that EDG will take as consolation. The Snake has no flash. I don't think he's safe under this turret.
No, he's not, and they're going to prove a bit difficult. The Snake gets jumped on, takes a lot of damage back. The Magnastorm afterwards does a lot of work. He's just nowhere to go. Throws up the ultimate on top of his head and is actually buying a fair amount of time as Vampire comes on in. But the Apotheosis light shot on the tower. It becomes a 1-for-1. They'll lose the tier 1 as a result, but look at the shockwave afterwards. Pulls Yodang back, and Weibo have overplayed their hand.
Fisher teleports back into the play after getting some gold on the side lane and cleans things up just a little for EDG. They still lose the mid lane out of turret, and that means that Weibo, I think they walk away from this play, you know, smarting a little bit, but largely getting what they wanted. They got a kill onto the Ziggs, they stop him farming. They're going to get themselves some pressure on bot side as well. Hang on, Chris this is really dangerous. Ala, you are not a tanky champion. I think he dies if he stays here.
He gets slowed by the W, he's got a bit of a speed up, tries to jump on force, but there's nowhere to go. Flashing on out actually keeps him alive.
He ends up hitting away one of the threats and activating the phase rush to run out, but still, flash, teleport down. CDC He's tanking the turret here, but it'll be okay for himself. Has a bit of armor to tank off some of those, shrug off some of those tower shots. Still, all the same, a dangerous moment for him.
Outplays it. Wasn't really expecting, I think, the heavy contest from Weibo, but they make it work in the end. We'll have a look at this replay as they dive so hard on the Snake, who's miles and miles away, satchels himself out, but gets caught mid-air with the arrow.
There's no real damage follow-up right here, though. You can see that the Seraphs has been built up. That buys a little bit of extra time for the Snake to get himself a couple of cooldowns out. And, like, I think he was largely going to be dead even if he goes under that turret either way. It just feels like the damage wasn't quite in range from Weibo.
Actually, credit to Ale there, who manages to 1v2 Crisp and Xiao and force the flash from Xiao, so they can't follow up. Neither of them got to hit the Zig, so the Ziggs manages to throw down his ultimate, his full combo, making it the 1-for-1, while Ale body block too.
And Ala's Jace has been a champion which has been quite successful in the past. It's not really been played that much across the LPL this year. I think we've only seen 3 games of it or so. Now 2 of them, I believe, being Ala's, and they've he's gotten a couple of wins out of it. Does feel like it's not necessarily about to the champion though at that point, more about the rest of the team. And 0-2, and the only real AD threat on this team, being that far behind allows, Yodang, who's built up. It's not the Endless Despair, it's the other one. It's the Hollow Radiance, that one.
Yep.
He's going to be in a real point of power. If he goes towards a Koenig Rooken as well, I think Yodang could be a real threat for EDG. I was worried when EDG locked in the double carries of the mage carries in the bot side, because it feels like, if you fall behind on this Jace, you're not really going to be adding much threat onto the tanks until a lot later into the game, which means that they don't really have to put that much armor on the table.
Right now, of course, and because the Jace is a little ways behind, as you were saying, like the DPS from him isn't quite there, and the Shin Sao's the other option's a bit difficult. The arrow lands, but is immediately Mikhail's away from, I believe Vampire's gone for that first item, which, when you're trying to mitigate Crisp's impact, does make some sense. So there you go, it is the first item, Mikhail's.
Definitely takes away one of the options from Weibo, which is, I think, quite intelligent building from the side of EDG's support. Can help them a little bit there. And thing is, he needs to be there at the plate. Chris can fire this from anywhere across the map. If eyes are on Vampire, much harder for EDG to disengage the play.
It is Collector first from Neela is not a surprise. It's regularly her first item. Really loves the lethality. The crit's really good. The execute's really good. Of course, her scaling. I think does she scale with lethality? No, that's Senna. But she does scale with crit really, really hard. Particularly on her ultimate, does vast quantities of scaling.
Particularly on her Q, because the crit scaling from the Q means that she gets lifesteal on champions. So it means that with the Collector, you just get a whole host of stats that you really like. And it means that when you go towards later items into the game as well, it wouldn't surprise me to see a shield bow next. I think that'd be quite important for them. He's at 2-item mark. Feels like, so even though he's been behind the game, all he really needs is to follow up on what Yodang's doing, and it feels like Weibo will still have a good amount of damage from the burst AD carry. And there's no real AD carry, traditional AD carry outside of that on EDG to contest with that. Even Neela is not a traditional AD carry, so it feels like with the burst combos being king, like with the Collector, can really do some damage.
Okay. Another 30 seconds or so until Dragon. Does look like EDG are the ones who are in the river first. They'll be the ones controlling this area of the map for now.
So, EDG needs to be careful with the arrow as long as they're grouped up with Vampire. That Mikhails can very much help in regards to kind of shrugging off that first pick. Can EDG control enough vision to stop ZDZ from getting into a good angle? He had a really good fight just a little earlier to keep Weibo into contesting things. EDG got to push in mid lane. They're going to be pushing them very, very far and clearing out some visions as well. But it feels like EDG have left a bit of a hole in this net towards the bot side again. And this is how they fell back from Dragon last time because they didn't feel like they had enough vision. As EDG walking towards the river now, need to have eyes on all the threats from Weibo.
Do indeed. Vampire goes forward. Gets interrupted by a wonderful Q from ZDZ. Pull back away. Flash on forwards. This Aatrox proving monstrous indeed. Still goes down for it. Perhaps a little bit bold. Light not here yet. Could still look for a flash slipstream and the apotheosis. Gets onto one. Has yet to use the ultimate. Can still look to go forwards after this. Is bounced away by the satchel charge. And so it is only going to be the 1-for-1 for now.
Oh, Light really does a lot less than I thought he would do, but I guess this is a Neela that's behind the game. ZDZ goes forward and finishes off the support. I don't think that's that valuable, but still, it's a decent amount of damage and allows Weibo to at least get themselves into River. They'll get themselves the Dragon, and EDG, once again, don't check their angles.
Part of it as well, just Light didn't pop the ult, and that's where so much of the damage is from Neela at this point in the game. It's like 120% scaling of the rank 2 ult. just doesn't pop it, so the damage isn't there from that.
No, I know he doesn't pop it, but still, it feels like he never really wanted to go in. He did.
Yeah.
He just felt like he didn't want to go too deep. I feel like he doesn't have the stats right now. And ZDZ, he gives his life for this flash forward. It's a good amount of damage. I wonder if that's a little too far.
Yeah, it looked
no
good,
follow.
and there wasn't exactly... If Light was there at the same time, that feels good. He wasn't. He was still kind of coming around the back of the blue buff, so that never really became an option. Instead, we find ourselves with Weibo winning the second dragon. They're the ones that win out the... Well, win out in that terms, even if the fight was even enough. The game remains a pretty close affair.
There's also a reminder as well, ZDZ had a fantastic interrupt on Vampire to stop the combo coming through. One of the big things that EDG haven't really showcased so far is how dangerous the Ziggs Rakan combo can be. When we've seen Ziggs in the bot lane before, it's typically Ziggs Nautilus, Ziggs Leona, Ziggs Rakan, because they lock someone up for so long that the ultimate is guaranteed pretty much to hit them. And that's a huge amount of damage in the sweet spot of it. With the Seraphs and the Ludens built up, it looks like towards there. Oh, that's actually going to be hit onto Vampire.
Fisher as well now with the second Shadow Flame, really looking to be doubling down on what could well be execute damage when you're running with a poke combo, a burst combo. Just having that additional execute potential with your ability to crit on your magic damage feels pretty good here. Perhaps delay some of things like the Death Cap or the Crypt Bloom, likely from the Orianna, because you have to pick or choose what goes in third. Looks like it will be the Crypt Bloom, which I think does make some sense.
I feel like EDG, they have a lot of combos to play around.
Do indeed. Alet will try to get the shove up here in the top side. 2.5 items himself. The Jace had a rough time of it in lane. Not having a great time. But has managed to stabilize well enough. Is still a threat in the game. And will continue to try and be as useful as he can be. Whereas on the other side, ZDZ has been pretty scary indeed on the Aatrox. Even if he has perhaps overstepped once or twice on what looks like good flashy plays. Even if the end result hasn't been as clean as he may have liked.
Still think that ZDZ has been one of the biggest threats which EDG have had to deal with. Yodang, he's walking forwards again with impunity. You can't clump up against this Rel. There they go.
The Light's coming on over. Not quite here yet. Could look to slipstream and look for someone in the backside. The fact they land the arrow means they can still go on in, but the Mikhail's does so much value. Light needs to back away. The bouncing bomb goes wide, but Light on this Neela just getting nothing done. Can find no angle to get in and use the combos. A shot blast deletes Yodang, the Iron Horse. Flavor just like hobbled in the lane.
The combo is really separated from Weibo yet again. This Neela doesn't have the gold to go in it alone and brawl through it. And with the smite down, EDG, despite the fact that they haven't won a lot of clean fights this game, will get themselves a free run of Baron. ZDZ has World Ender. He's spotted on Vision. He might be able to look for a big fight, but it still looks so dangerous for Weibo.
Crisp, I think, just had to flash there as well. Down to 3,000 HP. Where is Monkey? He's only... There's Leica pushing up in the mid lane as well. They will secure the Baron. And that's all done. Yodang being dead meant no smite, no real way to contest, and they just couldn't manage to deal with the onslaught poke, frankly, from the side of EDG.
And the way you deal with it is by engaging very effectively, very quickly. They couldn't do it. It was in parts again. You can see that Yodang catches some people out in the start of this replay. But it's not really with the follow-up of the damage again. Xiaohu gets a Mantra Cube. It's okay. It's not really the most damage here, though. Whereas on the other side, you look at Light walking in here. He just goes way too far from his team. There is no Mantra Cube to follow up. There is no Rel to buy some extra CC. And he has to flash out as well because there's no one there to give him a slipstream out. This is just insult to injury. The thing is, they get that kill, but the fact that the combo doesn't land in the first place is the bigger issue.
And part of that as well is, again, that first item Mikhail's buying dividends here, paying dividends here. Because you just removed the arrow that landed onto Allah, and then you could see what Light was thinking. Excellent, landed onto the Jace. I can follow up. Ah, no, I can't. I'm too deep. And like that kind of momentary overextension, kind of exacerbated by the Mikhails, really hurts now. As this Neela not finding any real value in this game so far.
And again, the other time we saw the Neela out of Light was absolutely destructive. One of the most clean games we've seen in the LPL. Thing is, if those early levels don't go well, it really doesn't look that good. Crisp, on the other hand, on this Ashe, he's done a really good job on it in terms of trying to be a big actor in this game. 3-0-3, landed some big arrows. He's done that even though he lost the lane on the Ashe. How often have we said that? The Ashe is meant to be up without winning lane and then snowballing from it. He still tried, here comes another arrow, but it's another Mikhail's.
Mikhail's come straight on out, really mitigating what Crisp can do. That already at half HP himself, and maybe look for something in here. Monkey actually gets slowed down. Maybe they can just go back. His Vampire counter engages into the massive combo. The Ziggs ult comes on down, and the bombs go flying. No one's quite dead as yet, but Yodang's just about alive. Monkey is the same. Everyone's low, but no one is dead.
No one is a traditional AD carry in this game, and Light's not even there to be the almost traditional carry. So while the burst comes through, there's no one with the range DPS to kill off one of these burst out targets. Xiaohu as well on the Karma does some decent burst, can't do the follow-up to kill. So Weibo, EDG, they're both kind of hobbling away from that bot side fight. You see that Light looks for the all-in mid lane. Did he force a flash out of mid lane? He ended up at least forcing out that. Yes, he did, very close to the kill.
Yeah, he does indeed, and that's just what you get to do. If you get to auto a bit more on the healing and shielding from your Apotheosis, always feels really good, especially just the raw amount of damage you do. Like, it is the hardest scaling AD ability in the game, I think, at level 16.
And also when you get like the kind of the auto Q resets as well, the AoE damage from that too, just all it all combos up into a really nasty combo. But of course you need to be very close range to do that. You need to be to know that you're likely to not make it out of one of those plays. Now because EDG have managed to group up again with the last of their Baron buff, they'll claim themselves this mid lane inner turret, despite the fact that they failed to get the bot lane inner turret. CDZ does have flash. You can potentially look for this.
Lands onto the snake. There's no Mikhail's quite yet. That's so much damage flashing away. Still has a satchel charge. It sends him the wrong way. The damage comes all through. Weibo finally find the engage they've been looking for. Denied so much of the last few moments. The snake, so much of the target access finally works out. Weibo continue to step on forward. The W lands. The Infernal Chains not dragging Monkey back because he gets enough speed to extricate himself from that difficult scenario.
Monkey actually ends up living because he manages to eat over the wall onto the Raptors, eventually buys himself enough space, but Weibo, once again, through their top laner of ZDZ, getting good value. Xiaohu actually using the Blast Cone now. Monkey has no flash, he could die here.
He's got no Crescent Guard either. The Magnet Storm after is buying so much time. It's Crisp who's trying to play traditional lady carry, but the Sundered Sky Healing do a lot of work. Over the wall they go, ZDZ just about alive, and the volleys won't quite pick him off. Body blocked by Allah to prevent that final volley catching and killing the Shinsao.
Yeah, if you see any AD carry in this game, the kills are going to go through the roof for them. This is what happens when you've got the double mages and the kneeler who is kind of struggles to get the final kill off damage. It's really hard to finish off some of these. The Mikhail's on cooldown here, and the Ash Arrow is much lower cooldown than this. Chris has been hitting them on cooldown. If you don't hit the arrow on cooldown, you don't force the Mikhail's on cooldown as well, which means that you often find yourself just going to be matched, stunned for cleanse. And there you go. They just about get away with that one and bring the gold near enough back to even.
Gold lead has been a bit of a heart attack graph, going up and down the entire game long. It's back over. Well, it was to EDG. It's been brought right back to even. Still, you feel as this game goes on, the fact that the 3 items are completed for the Jace, for the Ziggs, not miles off for the Orianna either. Your ability to throw out vast quantities of burst from the other side of the screen makes Weibo's job quite hard, because if they don't pull the trigger in a timely fashion, they can just take too much damage before they pull the trigger in the first place.
Deathcap in for the Snake, Shadow Flame in for Fisher, which is kind of showing how they want to organize their combo as well, right? Because that's going to be the big burst coming in from the start of the play through the Rakan and then the Ziggs. Then you want the Shockwave to actually finish off the rest of the fight, because that's when you get the most damage of it. A Shockwave on someone below, well, if you're using a Shockwave on someone below 35% HP, it might be a bit of a waste, but that is still going to be a one-shot well and truly.
Yeah, exactly. When it's second item, it's something we called out a little earlier in the draft to make those kind of like dangerous burst combos work. The arrows from Crisp away from someone like the Mikhail's wielding Vampire could have proven deadly there for Fisher, but he avoids what clearly would have been hook, line, and sinker, perhaps his namesake saving him there.
Just a little bit. So Crisp, I really think he's had a great game. Him and ZDZ, they've been trying to carry Weibo through quite a difficult draft after that early game. I think Yodang's not had the worst game either. He's been boldly trying to look for these engages. It's hard to look for the big engages. He had that one time he was sniped out in the back end of the fight. On the whole though, EDG, they've thrown a couple of curveballs here. Now they're getting to the point where now the Jace is a factor. They need to be so careful around playing around vision though. Weibo looking for flags.
No, they get the Magnet Storm, but it's a solid Crescent Guard to deny, but Monkey might have to flash. I don't think it's quite off cooldown yet. He's trying to try and eat a Monkey, but the tether's still there. Nowhere to go. The Redemption buys healing and speeding, doing some work as a massive bomb comes on thing. Light goes forwards. Apotheosis isn't enough.
And he doesn't get the kill. The healing and shielding is too much from EDG. And Weibo, they lose their AD carry after they dive too deep. Once again, trying to finish off Monkey, but he is a bit of an escape artist in this one. As EDG will now head towards the Baron.
Oh, and now they can do that. Exactly. There's just too much. It's so hard to consistently get towards the backside. They still want to fight it because a lot was burned.
Here comes EDZ. He's going to be a huge flanking factor. Here comes
Oh.
the World Ender. I think they're looking for the fight.
Lots of low health bars. You can do a lot of work. The Shockwave into the Jump Blast does so much work. Yodang solo crashing down away from the fight. Misses the Q1. ZDZ World Ender down. Arrow immediately cleansed out. ZDZ still trying to do work. He's in a 1v4, but he's an 8. He's a lethality Aatrox. He cannot survive, and the Baron still goes EDG's way.
While this happens, Xiao Hu dies. They don't even have the Mantra Q. Yodang was looking for a Miracle Steal, but can't get into the fight. EDG, they have so rarely clutched out the late game, but in this one, they form up as a 5-man unit with the combo, which is a little bit weird here in the LPL. We don't see it that often. First time this year, we've seen the Ziggs in the bot lane, but it has worked out for them through hookup by Crook.
And credit to EDG, because it was a very early Neela Ashe lock on the blue side. And I know you were raising some concerns, saying, look, I see the Ziggs lock in. I see that if you can survive the first few levels, how it's supposed to work, but I'm not sure that this is going to be a functional thing. But honestly, that bot lane from EDG proved way too much. The mid game has proved far too hard for Weibo to consistently find the picks. And despite the fact they're higher up the standings, despite the fact it's EDG at 2 and 10, with a roster that has just struggled to find anything resembling consistency, game 1 regardless is looking like EDG's to win.
The last hit on the Nexus goes down. It's not a light show. There's a snake in the shadows which controls this one, and despite the heroics from ZDZ and Crisp in the early game, they couldn't even last it out into the late game themselves. EDG walk away with a rare win for this roster, despite all of the changes and the hard weather that has come their way. They are 1-0 up in this series. If they were to lose today, they are out of playoffs. This is very much last chance saloon, and they strike first.
And now,